I have been a Secretary of State, and I have
Your husband signed NAFTA, which was one of the worst things that ever happened to the manufacturer. She's telling us how to fight ISIS. Just go to her website. She tells you how to fight ISIS on her website. I don't think General Douglas MacArthur would like that too much.
The next segment, we're continuing the subject.
At least I have a plan to fight ISIS.
No, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do.
No, we're not.
See, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do. No wonder you've been fighting. No wonder you've been fighting ISIS your entire adult life.
I have no reason to believe that he's ever going to release his tax returns because there's something he's hiding.
Typical politician. All talk, no action. Sounds good, doesn't work. Secretary Clinton doesn't want to use a couple of words, and that's law and order.
Secretary Clinton, last week you said we've got to do everything possible to improve policing, to go right at implicit bias. Do you believe that police are implicitly biased against black people?
Lester, I think implicit bias is a problem for everyone, not just police.
Well, I have much better judgment than she does. There's no question about that.
We have a huge show lined up for you tonight. In moments, we'll check in with Hillary Clinton's National Press Secretary, Brian Fallon, along with Trump campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. Mark Thiessen is here. Mo Alithi is here as well. Plus, Judge Andrew Napolitano has been standing by. But we begin the night with Chris Stirewalt and Howie Kurtz, who are right here with me on the set. Great to see you guys both here in the Spin Alley.
Man, how about that?
Your reactions.
Well, how about them apples? That's what I say. We've been waiting to get down to it, and we got down to it.
They did, and they went for it. I mean, Palmieri was like, "Oh, we're just gonna." I mean, that was spin, I suppose.
We're gonna have a conversation with the American people. Blah 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 blah. Pow 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 pow. I think she had a better night than he did, but he definitely didn't take himself out of anything. And I would remind any Trump supporters who are feeling a little uneasy about the performance tonight, there are three of these suckers, right? And he's going to get better at this.
Look at what happened with Romney and President Obama.
Exactly. He's going to get better at these things as he is aware of the format and understands it better. He let a lot of opportunities go by this time, especially on her email. There was shades of Romney and Benghazi with Obama that he just let the email issue just slide right off the table and didn't press her on that.
He had one line comeback that was good.
That was a very good line where he talked about that it was intentional and there was all that, but he let it go because she distracted him by making fun of his taxes.
Right. And how are your thoughts?
The good news for Donald Trump is that he discussed serious issues for 90 minutes with the former Secretary of State, didn't commit any major gaffes, but Hillary Clinton won the night on points. She was aggressive out of the gate, and in basketball terms, she controlled the ball. So even when Donald Trump was scoring points, he was doing so in response to her on her issues. She particularly was strong during the birther exchange, his tax returns, him stiffing private businessmen. And sure, Trump scored some points, but she kind of controlled the tempo of the evening. She also had some help, I think, from Lester Holt.
How so? What do you mean? You're a media critic.
Well, for all the debate,
Lester.
For all the debate about Lester Holt and would he fact check and so forth, the most aggressive questions from the NBC moderator, the most attempts at fact checking, and the most interruptions were all aimed at Trump, particularly on the birther issue, on the race issue, and on the tax return issue. I don't think there's any question about it.
But if you don't, I mean, to be fair, I thought Lester Holt did a pretty good job.
He let them go at it, which was good.
It was a tough situation. But on those instances you're talking about, Trump didn't answer the question. Right?
Trump was deflecting, but on the email, the only thing he asked Hillary Clinton was to respond to Donald Trump bringing it up as opposed to crafting a tough question for her.
Well, you can do it like that as a moderator if you know you want to get to it. The point is to get them talking about it. But he opened the debate with a subject very favorable to Trump.
Yeah.
And Trump had a very solid 15, 20 minutes on TPP and trade, and he was doing great in the beginning, right?
Right.
It wasn't until he was put on the defense that things started to feel different.
And then Lester Holt goes into the barn, opens the door, opens all the stable doors, and waits there for Trump to come run all the horses out and trample her on email, and he starts going back to his taxes. He just let it go.
I think Hillary Clinton's bemused expression as she responded to and deflected some of Donald Trump's one-liners got under his skin. He started to talk louder, faster, as if trying to compete with her. And as time went on, it seemed to me that he got a little more disjointed, and she was...
But you tell me whether she got a little cocky in the end there. There was that one shot with the shoulders, and she had done a good job of keeping her composure throughout the debate. She had a couple lines that fell flat where she said, I think he's making fun of the fact that I stay home to prepare for this debate. You know what else I prepare for? The presidency.
Yeah.
It was like...
Snap, like Zorro snap.
And Trump, it was just a throwaway comment he made, like, I was in these cities, you weren't there. I don't know if you tell me whether it required a response or the shoulder shake.
She also made a notable error on the same thing about being cocky, about being arrogant. At the end, when Lester Holt teed it up and said, "You said, Mr. Trump, you said she didn't look like a president, didn't look presidential. Is that about her gender? Is that about her being a woman?" And her answer was that stupid thing that she says all the time about, "I flew to this many countries and I did that." And I'm like, you're letting it go by? Then she realized belatedly, oh right,
wait, I have 8
things that I'm supposed to say about him being sexist, and I forgot to say them.
She kind of jammed it in.
All right. I want to stand you by. We're going to get back to you guys because we have Charles Krauthammer lined up, and I want to get your thoughts. Charles, what'd you think?
Well, I mean, it was not exactly the knockout fight that we thought. It was a spirited fight. I think in the end it was something like a draw, but I do believe that the draw goes to the challenger in the sense that Trump did not go over the line, and the very fact that he could go 90 minutes on the same stage automatically elevates the challenger. That's just automatic for any debate of that sort. I think he did allow himself to get very defensive, and she exploited that. She kept coming back to things where he wasted a lot of time on taxes, on some of the other issues that he felt personally about, and as a result, he missed a lot of opportunities. She presented herself as she always does, stolid, solid, knows her stuff, not terribly exciting, but reliable, and I think that's the best that she can do. Likable, she couldn't, but that was not something within her reach. And he contained himself in the sense that I don't think he committed any gaffes, but he allowed himself his sort of, she could find something personal about him that would make him go down rabbit holes at a time when he had wide openings to go after her on emails and other items and let them go.
What did you make of the fact that prior to the debate, analysts were saying they both needed to reach out to college-educated white voters, that they're fighting over these college-educated white voters that would normally be voting Republican, but have some hesitancy over Trump, suburban whites in particular. Did either make any progress as you saw it with that group?
I don't think so at all. I don't think there was anything of substance that would capture one constituency or another that either of them said. I think this was all about atmospherics, all about personality. I mean, the reason the debate was so anticipated is not that people wanted to hear what would be said on this issue or that. People have heard the issues expressed by the candidates nonstop now for months. They know their positions. They wanted to see how they interact and what their demeanor is. And I thought on demeanor she came out slightly ahead. But nonetheless, because his he was heralded as a guy who's sort of out of control, you can't entrust nuclear codes to, and all that. The fact that he was reasonably sort of moderating himself, I think is to his advantage. So on edge, if you had to say, does it have an impact? Probably not, but if anything, it would at least not stop his momentum.
Charles, great to see you. So there was
My
a big
pleasure.
reaction from debate observers tonight when Mrs. Clinton took her first question on emails. Watch.
I made a mistake using a private email.
That's for sure.
And if I had to do it over again, I would obviously do it differently. But I'm not going to make any excuses. It was a mistake, and I take responsibility for that.
Mr. Trump?
That was more than a mistake. That was done purposely. Okay, that was not a mistake. That was done purposely. When you have your staff taking the Fifth Amendment, taking the Fifth, so they're not prosecuted. When you have the man that set up the illegal server taking the Fifth, I think it's disgraceful. And believe me, this country thinks it's disgraceful. It really thinks it's disgraceful also.
Joining me now, Brian Fallon, who's the National Press Secretary for the Clinton campaign. Brian, great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm sure you think that she won, and she did beautifully. But let me ask you.
I do.
Let me ask you this before we get to the spin. She's taken some hits for claiming she didn't say that NAFTA was the gold standard. She did say that, right? So what did you make of the fact checking that was done on the spot?
On TPP.
Yeah, I'm sorry, on TPP.
Right. So, look, I think she explained that in the course of the debate. At one point when she was Secretary of State, she was hoping that the deal, when it would was finally negotiated in its full detail would be something she could support. Once she saw the details of it, it failed to meet her tests. She's been pretty clear and open about that.
But she denied saying that it was the gold standard, and she did say that.
That was something that was said at an earlier point before the deal was negotiated. I think overall, though, she owned the issue of the economy. The first 15 minutes were devoted to the subject of the economy. I think she took the fight to Donald Trump right away. The economy was the number one issue that we wanted to talk about in this debate because it's the number one issue on the minds of all the voters, including all the persuadable voters that are left in this election still making up their minds. And I think from the beginning, she showed that she was the candidate that had the plans to get wages rising in this country. And she really put him on his heels when she said she wants to build an economy that works for everybody, not just those that have a loan from their father to help get them started in business. And that really seemed to touch a nerve.
So what did, overall, did she execute the plan that you had for her? Because we were told by the team that she wasn't going to really try to draw him out, that she didn't think it was worth it. But it seemed like that's exactly what she did. She was on the attack most of the night.
Well, I have to be honest. We were surprised by the Donald Trump that showed up tonight. I mean, this is the Donald Trump that we saw all through the primary, but I really thought that his debate coaches, like Roger Ailes and Kellyanne Conway, were really going to impress upon him the need to really come and try to strike an even tone and show a temperament that he hasn't shown at any point in this campaign in a last-second bid to try to seem like he's temperamentally fit to be commander-in-chief. Instead, I think that anybody that had concerns about Donald Trump heading into this debate only had those concerns heightened. This was somebody that, in the tail end of the debate, seemed to really go off the rails. And he at one point tried to... Well, I think that he doubled down on some of the biggest lies that he's told in this campaign, whether it was his role in promoting the birtherism theory or his support for the Iraq War. I think that led to a tangent that was, quite frankly, hard to follow.
Can I ask you about the birtherism, though? Because understanding all that Trump did to promote that lie, okay?
Right.
Granting for the purposes of this discussion that he did promote that. She did some of that as well.
She didn't.
All right, explain why that's true, because what the McClatchy, Trump was right that the McClatchy bureau chief from the time came out and said that Sid Blumenthal, who was her right-hand person, came to him and said, go to Kenya, go investigate this. We think Trump may have been born there. And so they sent somebody over to Kenya to go investigate it.
So Politico looked into those claims, actually, and a couple weeks ago, Blake Hounshaw from Politico actually published a report. He talked to the reporters that were based overseas that were actually tasked by this editor in Washington to look into this.
I remember.
And they said, this is something else entirely. We weren't looking into birtherism.
They said they couldn't remember. They said they went over, and what the reporter who spoke with this McClatchy bureau chief said was, I'm certain that would have been one of the things they asked us to look into. He said, I don't actively recall it, but I'm certain it's one of the things they would have asked us to look into.
So what Donald Trump really stressed on the debate stage tonight, he invoked the former campaign manager of Hillary Clinton's from 2008.
Patty Solis Doyle.
Right, and said that she went on television last week and admitted that they had some role in the birtherism conspiracy. That's not at all what she said. She acknowledged that there was one regional organizer in Iowa that was peddling this, and as soon as they learned about it, they fired that person.
She fired.
There's a huge difference between
Just to let our audience know, this is your candidate, Hillary Clinton, leaving the building, probably going home and taking a rest after a long night here and the former President Bill Clinton, after a long night here at Hofstra University, which was full of fireworks. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Well, I think actually that we have a debate watch party close by.
Oh, is that right?
Making a stop there. We'll see.
Okay. Well, it wasn't a comment on her health. I'm just saying it's been a hell of a day for even the reporters, never mind the candidates.
I think she looked pretty tireless up there.
She seemed very spry. Her health is fine. Is she over the pneumonia?
Well, I think it takes a while to get over pneumonia, but she certainly didn't show any signs of it tonight.
Before I move away from the birther issue, and I want to see if we have the soundbite. Do we have the soundbite about on Trump talking about how he did President Obama a favor? All right, we don't, but let me paraphrase. He basically said, and I have the notes here, that I think I did a great job for the whole country on that and for the president himself to get him to release that birth certificate. There were audible gasps inside the auditorium when he said that. What was your reaction?
I mean, what nerve, what chutzpah to act like he did the president a favor after trafficking in a bigoted birtherism conspiracy for 5 years that undercut our first African-American president. I think Hillary Clinton put it in pretty poignant terms about what that meant, both to the country and to the president personally. And it's a shame that he just won't apologize.
What do you make of the fact that these polls have tightened to a place that's got to be somewhat uncomfortable for the Clinton campaign? She had a, almost 7-point lead in the Real Clear Politics average. Now it's down to, at best, 2. Colorado, he's up 1 now. Pennsylvania, within 2. all states that she was winning by double digits just a month ago.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. The race is tight. And one thing that I don't think people should conclude from tonight is that even though I think this was a huge victory for Hillary Clinton, I don't expect any big change in the polls. I think that's just the nature of the race. I think the contest is going to be tight all the way through the finish line, and it's really going to come down to the ground game.
Last question. Hillary Clinton went on record and called yours truly a superb journalist when Trump was attacking me. Why won't she come on the Kelly File?
I agree 1,000% with her characterization of you as a superb journalist, and I think it's only a matter of time.
Before the election.
I'm going to go back right after I walk off this platform here and make the case that we need to get her on the show.
Brian, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you being here. Now, Donald Trump is leaving. Maybe he's going home to rest. That's just a comment. That's what I'm going to be doing after I leave here. Maybe he's going to a wash party, but you can see Donald Trump with his entire family. That's Ivanka's husband, Jared Kushner, who many insiders connected to the campaign say has more influence over the way Donald Trump runs this campaign than anyone else. Ivanka and Jared have become really important to Donald Trump in how he handles himself and makes his strategic decisions. And there, of course, is Melania Trump and the rest of Trump's family. What a night for both candidates, and what a night for all of us. How many millions of Americans tuned in to watch that rumble here in Hofstra? More must-see reaction on the way with former George W. Bush speechwriter Mark Thiessen, the one gaffe he says he saw tonight, and 2008 Clinton campaign traveling press secretary Mo Alithi. Also, Fox and Friends co-host Tucker Carlson is here, along with former White House Deputy Press Secretary Bill Burton. Judge Andrew Napolitano, who helped us through the entire email scandal, is here tonight with a fascinating take. And then supporters of both candidates debate who won the night. Robert Zimmerman and David Wohl are back in 2 minutes. Don't go away.
When ISIS formed in this vacuum created by Barack Obama and Secretary Clinton, and believe me, you were the ones that took out the troops. Not only that, you named the day. They couldn't believe it. They sat back probably and said, I can't believe it. They said, no, wait a minute.
We've covered
when they formed, this is something that never should have happened. It should have never happened. Now, you're talking about taking out ISIS, but you were there and you were Secretary of State when it was a little infant. Now it's in over 30 countries. And you're going to stop them? I don't think so.
So you've got to ask yourself, why won't he release his tax returns? And I think there may be a couple of reasons. First, maybe he's not as rich as he says he is. Second, maybe he's not as charitable as he claims to be. Third, we don't know all of his business dealings, but we have been told through investigative reporting that he owes about $650 million to Wall Street and foreign banks. Or maybe he doesn't want the American people, all of you watching tonight, to know that he's paid nothing in federal taxes.
That was Hillary Clinton on the attack, questioning why Donald Trump will not release his tax information. He says he's under audit. Joining us now, supporters of both candidates. David Wohl, an attorney and Donald Trump supporter, and Mark Cuban, entrepreneur and Hillary Clinton supporter and host of Shark Tank. Great to see you both. Let me start with you, Mark, because you made a lot of news over the weekend because Hillary put you in the front row to get into Donald Trump's head. Do you feel you did that?
No. And let me just give you the exact story. I wanted to bring my 12-year-old daughter who's turning 13 to the debate. And so they got me 2 tickets. And I decided to tweet, and I added that I was going, but I just added the part that I added front row, that I had front row.
So you went rogue on that.
I went rogue on that, and I didn't think it would blow up, and then bam, he just
Next
took the
thing you
bait.
know, Jennifer Flowers was about to show up.
God, so yeah.
You were happy there was no Jennifer, I assume.
I didn't care. I was just here for the event.
You were happy there was no Jennifer,
well,
probably.
I think it would have been a circus, a sideshow, yeah. But
all right, let me get you to react to the first, 20 minutes that we had here, because those are all objective, political analysts. They're not Trump fans. They're not Hillary fans. They're just saying it how they saw it. What do you think?
I thought right off the bat, Hillary Clinton looked like she was reading a prompter. I mean, it really looked scripted. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But then I saw Trump, and frankly, he did revert to the original Donald Trump, the Trump that blew him up to where he is right now. That sort of off-the-cuff, spontaneous.
You like that?
I like it. His voters love it. He got his issues out there. He got his, put America first out there. He got his save jobs, don't let jobs flee the country. He got his law and order out there. And he got a little bit, not enough, I think, into Hillary Clinton's tax situation, the emails.
Because he took the bait on that when she went through the list of why isn't he releasing his tax returns.
But he should have gone right
he didn't
into,
pivot away from it.
He should have gone right into her problems with the emails, her problems with the Clinton Foundation. He should have, look, if the IRS says I can release my tax returns, but my lawyer says no, I'm not releasing them.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to listen to my lawyer's advice, and that's what it boils down to. So I think it was a red herring. It was a distraction, and it threw him off a little bit.
Did you think, most of the analysts are saying that Trump had a strong 15, 20 minutes on the economy, on trade. That's his issue. Mexico, China, on TPP, on NAFTA. Did you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with it. I mean, I necessarily agree with what he was saying, but he was cool, calm when he was talking about it. But the rest of the debate, he was counterpunching like he tries to do, but he never took control of a question. Remember, there was a moderator who asked questions, and more often than not, he didn't answer the question and never got around to answering the question. And you could tell that it kind of frazzled him. And then when Secretary Clinton came back with specifics, he would just deflect and change the topic. I just didn't feel he had a real opportunity to take control of issues and prove that he understood them, and he didn't do that at all.
Do you think that she was fact-checked enough? Because, she claimed that she never said TPP was the gold standard, and she did. She brushed off the Sidney Blumenthal thing as not true, but that is true. I mean, at least there's evidence for it.
Well, and that's fine, right? And he brought it up, and then they just moved on, right? Both ways. So, yeah, everybody's going to fact check after the fact, but Donald had a chance, if he really understood those issues, to talk more about them. Because it wasn't like he just stuck to the script. He went in whatever direction he wanted to do.
No, I thought
they asked him, what are you going to do about domestic terrorism? And he still hasn't answered it.
I thought he did unbelievably well when it came to law and order, crime and justice. And the issue of crime in New York City, you recall that Hillary Clinton says it's gone down. Donald Trump said, no, that's a lie. And it turns out rape, robbery, and murder skyrocketed. Property crime, inconsequential crime is down. So he should have brought that up a little more firmly, but that's the truth. Really serious crime is way up. When it comes to law and order, she won't even say those words, and that's critical to your
We actually have a soundbite of that. Let's watch Trump and Hillary arguing over crime in New York City.
Stop and frisk had a tremendous impact on the safety of New York City, tremendous beyond belief. So when you say it has no impact, it really did. It had a very, very big impact.
Well, it's also fair to say, if we're going to talk about mayors, that under the current mayor, crime has continued to drop, including murders. So there is...
Wrong. You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
Murders are up. All right, you check.
New York...
Murders are up, and these are the facts. In 2014, it was 333 murders. In 2015, it's 352 murders.
But remember, what was the question? It was about stop
and frisk. As it turned out.
And he deflected from the question, right? Because the question then was asked by Lester, is it constitutional? And then he went talking about local judges and didn't deal with the issue of constitutionality.
One lower federal court judge decided that it wasn't. It
in New York.
Go beyond it. In New York. And as it turns out, when they did stop and frisk, they often found people who were illegally carrying weapons. It's hard to argue against that.
Okay, so
white, black, Hispanic, Asian, all kinds of people.
Where does stop and frisk end? Who gets to determine who stopped and who's frisked?
The standard is a reasonable...
Let him finish.
Because at some point, they're just going to stop and frisk you and look for a gun. And they're going to take those guns, and so there's a lot more at stake.
They have to articulate a reasonable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot. That's the standard. And when they can do that...
That's not what he said.
But let me ask you this. What about his accusation that Trump did not get specific on the plan for ISIS again?
Well, look, I mean, he has said before that he's going to carpet bomb the you-know-what out of them. I think he would do that. I think he's going to get very, very aggressive with it. But he also acknowledges when they're in 30 countries, that's hard to deal with. The number one priority is stopping them here. And every single week we're seeing a new attack.
Yeah, but he didn't address that. He didn't address it
I got to ask you this.
Two more debates. That's the good.
We have a bunch of guests we want to get, but I have to ask you this. Why don't you like Donald Trump? You're a billionaire. He's a billionaire. Is it a professional envy, jealousy, guerrilla situation?
No.
What is it?
It's about my kids. It's about the future of this country. Look, you saw his temperament. At the base of everything he said tonight, he said he would not honor our commitments as a country. And he proved that. That's his way of doing business.
NATO when they're not going to pay their fair share.
Yeah, but exactly. Is it more? Is world peace? What's more important? Asking for more money from Japan or world peace?
We'll get both. We will get both. So when they have to pay their fair share if they want our forces to risk their lives. defending those countries.
Fair share is relative to Donald Trump. He stiffed architects and thousands of people, and he said up there on the debate stage that they just didn't do maybe I didn't think they did a good enough job, and that's why they didn't get paid. So what are you going to say to Japan when North Korea decides to test in their direction? Well, you didn't pay enough, so we're not going to be there for you.
Okay.
What happens?
We all know
we'll have to leave it at that.
Okay.
It's great to see you both. Nicely done. That was fun. I was
awesome.
I was right in the middle of it. Okay, as I mentioned a moment ago, one of the big moments early in this debate came when Donald Trump went after Mrs. Clinton on the issue of trade and her support for the TPP deal. Listen.
Just ask you this. You've been doing this for 30 years. Why are you just thinking about these solutions right now?
I think my husband did a pretty good job in the 1990s. Secretary of State, and I have
Your husband signed NAFTA, which was one of the worst things that ever happened to the manufacturer. You said, I can't win that debate. But you know that if you did win, you would approve that, and that will be almost as bad as NAFTA. Nothing will ever top NAFTA.
That is just not accurate. I was against it once it was finally negotiated and the terms were laid out. I wrote about that in...
You called it the gold standard. You called it the gold standard of trade deals. You said it's the finest deal you've ever seen.
No.
And then you heard what I said about it, and all of a sudden you were against it.
Mrs. Clinton repeatedly denied Trump's claims, suggesting at one point he lived in a world of made-up information. But here was Mrs. Clinton back in 2012.
We need to keep upping our game, both bilaterally and with partners across the region through agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. Australia is a critical partner. This TPP sets the gold standard in trade agreements to open, free, transparent, fair trade, the kind of environment that has the rule of law and a level playing field. And when negotiated, this agreement will cover 40% of the world's total trade and build in strong protections for workers and the environment.
Joining me now, Mark Thiessen, American Enterprise Institute Fellow and Fox News contributor, and Mo Eliti, Executive Director of Georgetown University's Institute of Politics and Public Service. Great to see you both.
Good to see you, Megan.
I mean, let's just cut through it. She flipped on TPP. She flipped on it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think she gave herself enough wiggle room in the beginning that she got to a point where she could say, look, you know, if this thing isn't negotiated the way I like it, then I'm not going to be for it. And that's where she is. It's probably one of her tougher things that she's dealing with.
Because she flipped.
But when you look at it compared to the rest of this, Okay,
fine. There's plenty of blame to go around, yeah. But she flipped on that issue. He had her on that one.
If she had said what Mo just said, she'd be fine.
Yeah,
but
that's
not what she said.
She denied it.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing is that we didn't get to yet. She accused him of saying climate change is a hoax and that it was done for the benefit of China. He denied that. Mm-hmm. He did send that out in a tweet in 2012. It's still on his Twitter feed. He later tried to claim that that was a joke, but he has repeatedly referred to climate change as a hoax and recently said that it's for the benefit of China. So they lie. I mean, that's what we are left with. They lied to us. And we as the media have to try to separate the wheat from the chaff. What did you think was the biggest gaffe?
Well, the biggest gaffe, I think, was on nuclear policy, and I don't think it's going to have a big impact on voters because I think it's kind of in the weeds. But he said that he seemed to take
a nuclear.
Trump seemed to take a nuclear first strike off the table, which would make him the first president in the nuclear age, going all the way back to Eisenhower, to have taken a nuclear first strike off the table. That's very troubling for national security conservatives who are looking and they're struggling with whether to vote for Trump or not.
And who think that she may be more of a hawk than he is.
Yeah, possibly.
All right, let's go bigger picture now. What was your impression of the debate?
Donald Trump's bar was really low coming in. The problem with the low bar is it's easy to trip over it. And I think he totally tripped over it tonight. I don't think he met even low expectations.
Why?
I think he reverted to primary Trump. Right, at a time when he was trying to, and his team said he was going to sort of elevate. He reverted to primary Trump, but with less charm. Right? I mean, he was angry. He was defensive. She got under his skin very early. I thought she might 1 or 2 points in the debate, but I mean, from like 10 minutes in through the duration, she was clearly in his head and under his skin. And I don't think he reacted well. She took him off his game. His core message was missing tonight.
So they both wanted to be likable, Mark. Maybe she was doing a good job of making him seem a little, boorish. But then towards the end, with her, with the shoulders. It was like, wow, too much. You've gone too far. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong. But I think that he made a big mistake in constantly interrupting her.
We have a little bit of that. Do we have that soundbite? Because you can just to show the audience what we were seeing and how it felt here. Do we have it? Sorry, my team is doing a brilliant job. We have a lot of sound, so they're separating it out. Do you have it? Do you have the interrupting soundbite? Stand by. This is fun. Keep going. I won't interrupt you again. Sorry.
But the point being is that he was consistently interrupting her. And if you go back to the first debate in 2000 when Al Gore was debating George W. Bush, he won the debate on points, on substance, but he kept sighing and he kept rolling his eyes. And so people looked at him and said, "You look like a jerk." And that was their impression. And I think Trump's interrupting, even at a few sighs when she was speaking, a couple of groans, that will be the sigh and eye roll of the 2016 debates. So I think she came out ahead in this debate, but let's keep in mind that in 2012, Romney crushed Barack Obama in the first debate. So this is far from over.
That's right. Barack Obama's top advisors pulled him aside after that debate and said, "You sucked." And he was like, "What?" And they said, "You sucked." And even Michelle Obama pulled him aside and said, "Yes, you stunk." But he came out a different man.
But does Donald Trump have people in his campaign who will turn around and look at him and say, "You sucked tonight"?
And more importantly, is he the kind of candidate who will listen to that and recalibrate and adjust? I mean, if this entire campaign tells us anything, it's that he's not.
But did he lose any viewers? I mean, any voters tonight, Mo? I mean, that college-educated white crowd that they're telling us they're fighting over.
I don't think he expanded, right? If that college-educated white crowd right now is sitting on the fence, I don't think he pulled them over to his side. I think, if anything, he raised doubts and concerns with a lot of these people on a whole host of issues, from foreign policy and national security to even the economy and taxes. When she said, "You don't pay income taxes," and he said, "That's because I'm smart."
That makes me smart.
I mean, what does that say about the rest of us chumps that do pay income taxes?
We suck too.
All of us.
Great to see you guys.
Great to see you, Megan.
Well, Donald Trump has made this campaign largely about his business past, saying he has the right experience to turn the country around. Mrs. Clinton, for her part, claims there are certain part of Mr. Trump's past dealings he would like to ignore, even invoking his new campaign manager.
If your main claim to be president of the United States is your business, then I think we should talk about that. You know, your campaign manager said that you built a lot of businesses on the backs of little guys. And indeed, I have met a lot of the people who were stiffed by you and your businesses. We have an architect in the audience who designed one of your clubhouses at one of your golf courses. It's a beautiful facility. It immediately was put to use, and you wouldn't pay what the man needed to be paid, what he was charging you.
Maybe he didn't do a good job, and I was unsatisfied with his work, which our country should do too.
The thousands of people that you have stiffed over the course of your business not deserve some kind of apology?
When Secretary Clinton talks about people that didn't get paid, first of all, they did get paid a lot, but taking advantage of the laws of the nation. Now, if you want to change the laws, you've been there a long time, change the laws. But I take advantage of the laws of the nation because I'm running a company. My obligation right now is to do well for myself, my family, my employees, for my companies.
Well, that campaign manager joins me now. Kellyanne Conway is the manager of the Trump campaign. Kellyanne, great to see you. Thank you for being here. All right, so first, what did you make of that? She's quoting the old you.
They may have to come to us.
Right outside of Atlantic City. And my mother worked in one of the non-Trump casinos for 21 years, and that's the way she supported us, including putting me through college and law school and Catholic school my whole life. So I'd like to challenge her anytime to tell me that people like Donald Trump who revitalized Atlantic City didn't do a good job.
What do you make of the she came out swinging on this, that he stiffs the little guy and he doesn't pay the contractors, and he didn't really defend it other than to say maybe they didn't do a good job, maybe they didn't do the job to my liking, which led to some people sort of oohing and eyeing in the debate room. Was that a mistake? for him to say that?
Well, I thought Mr. Trump at different times tonight showed great restraint, more restraint than I may have in the face of fire and lies, particularly at the end where he literally could have gone there and made very clear that he came ready to say some rough things if she was going to challenge him about his abuse, about his record on women, and then he decided he wouldn't do that in front of her husband and her daughter. And frankly, Megyn, you know, restraint is a virtue, and it's a presidential virtue. And I think for all those people who love to talk about tone and temperament, they ought to go replay that clip and think of all the things that were going through millions of Americans' heads that he didn't say. I really appreciated it. The other thing is that, you know, Donald Trump is somebody who has employed tens of thousands of people over the years. Think about that. He's compensating them. They're getting benefits. They're getting health care. And many of them are women. And he's promoted women to some of the highest echelons, including in his campaign and certainly in his corporation. What jobs has she created? Who has Hillary Clinton employed? And the State Department doesn't count. We pay for them. They're in taxpayer dollars. So I think his record on business creation and job creation is unparalleled on that stage.
Why didn't he go harder after the email issue?
Well, he was the only one who raised the email issue tonight, actually. The moderator followed up by saying, he mentioned your emails. Do you have a response, Mrs. Clinton?
He might have had a question ready, and this Trump got it to him first.
Perhaps.
Sometimes that happens.
Perhaps. So Donald Trump did mention the fact that she has deleted 33,000 emails. That's very much on the minds of Americans.
Do you think he's going to go after her? I'm talking about Trump supporters who wanted to see him go after that more, you know, which has been a big issue for a lot of voters. Do you think we'll see more of that in future debates from him?
Well, I hope we'll see more of that even before the debates. In other words, we don't have to wait for these 3 90-minute blocks, Megyn, to find out who these people really are on the issues. But we did have to wait for that with Mrs. Clinton because she doesn't really give many policy speeches.
No.
If she's talking
or
about
press
policy,
interviews.
That's right. Thank you. If she's talking about policies, we don't know because we're not donors at her fundraisers. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's an incredibly important point here because Mr. Trump is out there every single day talking about policy. She waited until she filled her head with all these facts and figures, came to a debate, and made sure we heard everything.
No, it's harder. It's much harder when you're sitting in this chair and I can play the soundbite of you saying how TPP is the gold standard. I mean, that's a much harder situation than being on the debate stage.
That's
which is why we hope she'll come here.
Yes.
So let me ask you to grade both performances, his and hers.
Oh, I'm so bad at that.
Just take a stab at it.
I mean, I'd give them both a satisfactory in that I guess 90 minutes went too quickly for me. There are so many issues that could have fallen into those particular categories. America didn't hear that she's for late-term abortion, sex-selective abortion, that you can find out the gender of your baby, and then
social issues in
right, and that she was absolutely against gay marriage in 2008, emphatically so. The first time she lost president, and this time when she's going to lose president, she changed her mind completely. There wasn't much on the border. And I think, frankly, her very amnesty-like open borders policy on immigration, what would she really do with Syrian refugees? They're very different on that issue. But that's not a failing so much as of anybody on the debate stage so much as just the limited time.
Yeah. He was taking heat just a moment ago for interrupting her. You know, she was saying things with which he disagreed, and he would pipe in saying, not true, or whatever. They weren't, it was sort of a back and forth. Was that a mistake, or was that fair game?
It's fair to defend yourself, and I think sometimes when you're in a situation like that, you're just so shocked that somebody would lie and try to spin it in such a way in real time in front of tens of millions of people, Megyn, that you feel the only way to defend yourself is your natural reaction. Remember, he's not a politician, and so Hillary Clinton has participated in 34 primary debates. Let me just repeat that, 34 primary debates. It's a remarkable number.
He did all those primary debates and said he won every one.
He did, as a non-politician. She's a practiced politician, and so he never asks me as a pollster, what word do I use? Which way should I look? What tie should I wear? And so that we don't have those conversations. I respect that. But no, by the way, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No.
That wasn't nice, but it wasn't 25.
Go for it.
No, here's what I want to get out. He was saying not true, or no, or this is how it was, or that's a fact. And instead of interrupting, you know what she was doing? She was rolling her eyes. She was very glib, and sometimes she had a smirk on her.
Last question. Why did he say that he never called climate change a hoax when he has many times, and suggest that he didn't suggest it was for China's benefit, because he did.
Well, I think what he's saying is, as a presidential candidate where he's really studied these issues and consulting with experts, he has said very clearly.
He said it recently. He said that climate change is a hoax and suggested that it inures to China's benefit.
I can tell you what he does say often.
No, I'm telling you, that's what he says. So why did he deny it?
He thinks it doesn't make him think it's man-made. He does think, he has said that some of these scientists are exaggerating it because they're paid to do so. But he also has been very clear. They're very different on climate change. It's probably a really bright line demarcation for them because
they are. But I'm trying to. You're suggesting that she lies, and I think the conclusion of most people is all these politicians lie, and we just have to find out which are the lies and which are. Well, he is now.
Well, but 66%. But in the newest ABC News Washington Post poll, Megyn, more Americans think that she's not honest and trustworthy than him by a pretty significant margin. And I think part of it is because she has a record that is now going to be scoured.
Thank you very much
for having me
here on a very busy night. Thank you. Appreciate it. So one of the other themes that we heard from debate observers, and you heard this from a couple of our guests earlier, is that Lester Holt pressed Donald Trump harder than he did Hillary Clinton. Here's an example some are citing.
Mr. Trump, a lot of these are judgment questions. You had supported the war in Iraq before the invasion. What makes your judgment?
I did not support the war in Iraq.
2002.
That is a mainstream media nonsense put out by her because she, frankly, I think the best person in her campaign is mainstream media.
My question is, since you
would you like to
supported
hear?
it, why is your
war. Wait a minute. I was against the war in Iraq, just so you put it out.
The record shows otherwise.
The record
but
does not show
why is your judgment?
The record shows that I'm right. When I did an interview with Howard Stern, very likely, first time anyone's asked me that, I said, very likely, I don't know, maybe, who knows, essentially.
Joining me now, Fox and Friends co-host Tucker Carlson and former White House Deputy Press Secretary under President Obama, Bill Burton. Great to see you both. Tucker, what'd you think?
Well, I think Trump won because he didn't melt down. It was a low threshold. Does he know a ton of details? No. Does he talk about himself too much? Of course he does. On the other hand, the basic point is he didn't invade Iraq. He didn't kill Gaddafi. He didn't tank the housing market or bail out the banks or think of quantitative easing. He's not part of the unfolding disaster that we've watched for the past generation, and she is. And he made that point again and again. That's kind of all he needed to do. He's winning, by the way, in the polls. We're pretending he's not. He is. And so if he continues not to screw up, he will win. That's my view.
Bill?
Well, I agree with Tucker that, politicians get graded on a curve and the bar was very low for Donald Trump. But the problem is that he was a disaster tonight. I thought that Hillary Clinton did well, but listening to Kellyanne talk about the debate just reinforced the fact that they also thought it was a disaster. You just look at those guys walking out of the tunnel, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in their campaigns. Hillary Clinton was waltzing out. Donald Trump was angry, was, having a tough conversation. Look, he has to find a path to 270 electoral votes. It does not go through the kind of crazy, intemperate ranting that you saw tonight, only loosely associated with fact.
Well, notwithstanding what you characterize as Trump, he is surging right now, Bill. And Colorado's within 1, and Pennsylvania's within 2, and Florida and Ohio are tight as could be. North Carolina's tight again. He's surging.
Yeah, look, this is a close race. It was always going to be a close race. And I think that Hillary Clinton's numbers are artificially low because I don't think millennials are not going to support her at the numbers where they are. I think that the African-American and Latino vote's going to be higher than it currently shows in the polls. But for Donald Trump, he had a special issue that he had to attend to tonight. And that's find the college-educated suburban voters that he needs in order to actually lock in some of those states. Donald Trump may be moving ahead, but there's not very many places where he's above 45, 46%. You've got to get to 50. And for him to push past those final percentage points, he has to be a person that he showed tonight he cannot be.
Tucker, it's always fun to blame the moderators. I've been there. I thought Lester Holt did a fine job. What did you think?
Yeah, whatever. We know who he's voting for. I don't think it really matters. What matters is
registered Republican.
Did Trump? Whatever. Who cares? And Trump, I think, wisely didn't whine about it because when you whine about that stuff, you sound weak, and he gets that. I'm sure it annoyed him. But whatever. The point is, he had to convince the middle of the undecideds, who aren't really actually undecided because they never are. They're hoping for permission to vote for the the insurgent against the incumbent. It's a changed election. So you want more of the same or do you want change? Most people want change. They're afraid of Trump. They think he's too volatile. So if he can convince them that he's basically not crazy, he wins, which is why he's winning. Look at the numbers.
It's great to see you both. Thanks, guys. Up next, Judge Napolitano and Dana Perino on what was not said tonight.
Don't Americans have a right to know if there are any conflicts of interest?
I don't mind releasing. I'm under a routine audit, and it'll be released. And as soon as the audit's finished, it'll be released.
The IRS says an audit of your taxes, you're perfectly free to release your taxes during an audit. And so the question, does the public's right to know outweigh your personal?
Well, I told you, I will release them as soon as the audit. Look, I've been under audit almost for 15 years. I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes when she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted. As soon as she releases them, I will release my tax returns.
That was Mr. Trump, both taking a hit and scoring a point when he turned the issue from his tax returns to Mrs. Clinton's emails. Dana Perino is with and Judge Andrew Napolitano is a Fox News senior judicial analyst. Great to see you both. So let me start with you, Dana, while you're here. How did you think it went?
Well, I think that if you were at home and you were undecided, you might have said, I still don't know. So the second debate becomes really important. I don't think that Trump expanded his base in any way. He probably didn't lose any supporters. I do think she did something that she needed to do, which is that she shored up wobbly Democrats. We know that Democrats have been pretty unenthusiastic about her candidacy. They're not really sure. They don't really like her. She was not Bernie Sanders. She's not a President Obama. But tonight, I think that she was able to say, look, I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm ready, and I'm here to fight for you.
She certainly didn't look near death, as some of her detractors
she did not.
would have us believe. Judge, all the time we have spent discussing this email issue and the immunity deals and Director Comey, and it was like it barely was there.
You know, I could tell you 5 times that she lied under oath. I could tell you about FBI agents who believe their hands were tied, intelligence assets who think Americans died because she failed to retain national security secrets. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't mention any of that. I thought she clobbered him, that it wasn't even close, because these debates are won or lost not on debating points, but by general impressions. The impression was she controlled the ball, he was on the defensive, and he utterly failed to address her singular weakness, which is the perception that she is unworthy of trust.
Wow. Well, it's interesting because he had all that Comey, he has that back and forth with Director Comey and Trey Gowdy to outline the number of falsehoods that were delivered to the FBI. But it does require homework to deliver that kind of thing, Judge.
I don't think he was prepared. And since I know some of the people that were preparing him, I think some of their ideas probably went in one